Deep thinking, a different way to see yourself. Why you never actually change. Change is a word we use easily. We speak of growth, reform, and new beginnings, as if they are always within reach. Heraclitus once suggested, "No one steps into the same river twice. Everything flows, yet remaining still requires effort as well." His insight reminds us that change happens whether we act or not. The question is whether we move with it, or merely talk while standing still. Maybe the issue is not intention, but distance between words and decisions. First, talking about change gives us emotional relief. It creates the feeling of progress without requiring risk. Second, identity resists disruption. Real change demands that we loosen habits that quietly define us. And third, comfort disguises itself as patience. We tell ourselves the timing is not right, while postponement becomes routine. Over time, discussion replaces movement. We begin to measure sincerity by how often we speak, not by what we alter. So now, what if you asked yourself, do I speak about change more often than I practice it? Have I confused talking about change with actually changing something?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Am I just living on autopilot? Most lives do not change dramatically overnight. They shift slowly through small, repeated decisions. James Clear once wrote, "Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become." His point is that identity forms through patterns. Habits quietly build patterns that eventually determine direction. If that is true, then living on autopilot may still be shaping a future we never consciously chose. Maybe the issue is not lack of ambition, but lack of awareness. First, established routines reduce friction. What begins as convenience gradually becomes automatic. Second, expectations settle in. Career paths, relationships, and schedules often continue simply because they have already started. And third, momentum replaces intention. We keep moving forward without asking whether the path still reflects our priorities. Over time, what we repeatedly do begins to feel like who we are. We may call it stability, while default gradually becomes the norm. So now, what if you asked yourself, when was the last time I consciously chose the direction I am following? If nothing changed, would I be content with where this path leads?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
What am I becoming? We rarely decide who we become in a single moment. More often, we are shaped by what we repeatedly practice. Aristotle once wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. His words suggest that character is not formed by intention alone. It develops through repetition. Every small action trains something within us. And over time, those quiet repetitions begin to define our future. The training rarely feels intentional. It feels ordinary, almost invisible in daily life. First, attention becomes habit. What we repeatedly focus on begins to shape what we value, quietly narrowing what we consider important. Second, reaction becomes character. How we respond each day gradually defines how we think and what we believe is acceptable. And third, repetition normalizes direction. What we practice without question becomes the path we follow. Through what we repeatedly notice and how we consistently respond, our future character quietly takes shape. So now, what if you asked yourself, what am I training myself to become through my daily habits? And if nothing changed, who would I become in 5 years?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Where did my time go? We often think of character as something personal and self-directed. We often believe we know how we spend our time. But most days pass without careful attention. Hours move through small, repeated actions. Checking, scrolling, waiting, reacting. None of them seem significant on their own. Yet together, they shape how our day unfolds. What we return to again and again quietly fills our time. And over time, how we spend our days begins to define how we live. Perhaps our time is less intentional than we think. First, small actions accumulate. Moments that feel minor begin to take up more space than expected. Second, attention drifts without direction. We move from one task to another, without deciding what truly matters or why. And third, reflection rarely happens. We seldom pause to see where our time has gone, or what it is shaping in us. Over time, our days become something we pass through, rather than something we shape with intention. So now, what if you asked yourself, what do I actually spend most of my day doing? And if this pattern continues, what kind of life am I building?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Are you productive or just occupied? Some days feel full from beginning to end. Tasks are completed, messages are answered, time keeps moving. Yet when the day ends, something feels missing. Despite being busy, there is little sense of meaning. The hours were filled, but not necessarily directed. We move from one activity to another without pausing. And without noticing, our days become occupied, but not always connected to what truly matters to us. Perhaps busyness has replaced meaning more than we realize. First, activity becomes the goal. We focus on staying occupied, rather than asking why we are doing anything at all. Second, attention is fragmented. We divide our time across many small tasks, rarely giving full focus to one thing. And third, reflection is missing. We do not stop to connect what we did with what we value. Over time, our days feel full, but leave us with a sense that something important is still absent. So now, what if you asked yourself, am I busy or am I moving with purpose? And if nothing changed, would this routine still feel meaningful to me?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Is this rest or just escape? Rest once meant a pause from effort, a moment to recover, reflect, or simply be still. But now, rest often looks different. It becomes filled with endless content. Videos, shows, scrolling feeds that never seem to end. We move from one piece of entertainment to another without stopping. It feels like relaxation, yet something remains unsettled. And without noticing, rest shifts from something that restores us to something that keeps us occupied and slightly disconnected. Perhaps rest has been replaced by passive consumption. First, we fill every moment. We avoid stillness by turning to something that requires no effort, even when we feel tired. Second, attention stays engaged. Even during rest, our minds remain active, moving from one input to another without pause. And third, recovery is incomplete. We may feel entertained, but not truly restored. Over time, rest loses its purpose and becomes another form of activity that quietly drains rather than renews us. So now, what if you asked yourself, am I resting or just staying distracted? And when I stop the noise, what do I actually feel inside?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Building skills or just passing time? Time moves whether we notice it or not. Each day fills itself with actions, decisions, and habits. Some of what we do leaves something behind. Skills improve, understanding deepens, progress builds slowly. But much of our time passes without lasting effect. We move from one moment to another, without carrying anything forward. And without noticing, time can either shape us, or simply slip by without leaving anything meaningful. Perhaps we confuse activity with growth. First, effort is not always directed. We spend time doing things without asking whether they contribute to anything lasting. Second, repetition can be empty. Doing something often does not guarantee improvement or learning. And third, progress is not always visible. Without clear results, it becomes harder to stay intentional about how we use our time and energy. Over time, we may feel busy, but realize we have not moved forward in any meaningful way. So now, what if you asked yourself, what am I actually building with how I spend my time? And if this pattern continues, where will it take me?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
Am I avoiding what matters? We often believe delay is caused by lack of time or discipline. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." His words suggest that delay is not always about external limits. It reflects how we choose to use the time we already have. Yet even when something truly matters, we still postpone it. Delay may reveal more about our priorities than our intentions. Perhaps the issue is not delay itself, but what drives it beneath the surface. First, disavoided. What matters often requires effort, uncertainty, or risk, so we turn away. Second, urgency is misjudged. We respond to what feels immediate, not what is truly important. And third, intention creates illusion. Planning to act can feel like progress, even when nothing is done. Over time, delay becomes a pattern, and what truly matters is quietly pushed further away. So now, what if you asked yourself, when I delay something important, what am I actually avoiding? Am I choosing what matters or reacting to what feels urgent?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper.
What is this habit doing to me? We often think our future is shaped by big decisions and turning points. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. His words suggest that small actions are not insignificant. They accumulate over time and form patterns that define who we become. Because habits feel ordinary, we rarely question them. What seems small today may quietly shape our future. Perhaps the issue is not habits themselves, but how little attention we give them. First, repetition hides impact. What we do daily feels normal, and its influence becomes harder to notice. Second, comfort reinforces patterns that are harder to question. Familiar actions require less effort, so we repeat them without reflection. And third, Small changes feel unnecessary. Because each action seems minor, we delay adjusting what truly matters. Habits quietly accumulate, often without being fully noticed, and they begin to shape outcomes we never consciously intended. So now, what if you asked yourself, what habit am I repeating every day without questioning it? And where is that habit quietly leading me over time?
What would you honestly say? Let's keep going a little deeper. If you took a moment to reflect, that's already enough. See you in the next one.